everybody. Welcome to Dangerous Ideas. I'm Lee Camp. Got a big show for you. Leaked documents showing that not only do the leaked U.S. documents showing the U.S. involvement in Israel's planning for a strike on Iran, but on top of that, admissions, even though it's kind of an open secret, admissions of Israel having nuclear weapons. We've got that. I've got video for you of the NATO chief falling on his face when asked simple questions about China, which is pretty amazing. Anyway, all of that and about 35 other stories coming to you right now. So please click thumbs up, click share, click the subscribe thing. I hope everybody is sustaining. I feel like that's a better thing to say now than doing well, because in a time of an endless genocide live streamed, it's tough to say, is anyone doing well? I don't. So are you sustaining, I guess, is the new question. But today I'm excited to also have on with me amazing human being and my favorite correspondent from Redacted Tonight. Don't tell the others. Don't tell the others. Jafar Khan.
I'm telling John.
If John finds out, it's going to be a catastrophe.
But yeah, good to be here, Lee. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. You doing all right? Are you sustaining? As I just
I'm maintaining. Yeah, I say maintain. I'm maintaining the best that I can. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for joining me for the show today. So I want to start off with this story that these leaked documents have come out, and sometimes with leaked documents like this, it's tough to tell whether it might have been a quasi-intentional leak where there's something the U.S. wants to get out there and pretend it shouldn't be out there. But it is tough to know. For right now, it doesn't seem like it. These leaked documents show U.S. intelligence is involved in Israel's plan to attack Iran. And of course, Israel wants to, quote unquote, get revenge at Iran for their attack on Israel. But of course, Iran's attack on Israel was in response to Israel assassinating many of their people.
Yes, and it was an unprompted response.
Yes. Anything Israel does is unprompted. Anything Iran does is unprompted. Anything Israel does is heavily prompted and provoked. Mm-hmm. The U.S. is investigating a leak of highly classified U.S. intelligence about Israel's plans to retaliate against Iran. The documents dated October 15th and 16th began circulating online Friday after being posted on Telegram. They are marked top secret and have markings indicating they are meant to only be seen by the Five Eyes, which is Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom and the United States. Only two of those actually have eyes in the name, so I think we need to change the name. But they describe preparations Israel appears to be making for a strike against Iran. One of the documents, which says it was compiled by the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, says the plans involve Israel moving munitions around. But of course, if it was compiled by the National Spatial, that means the U.S. is involved in the intelligence and information that Israel's using. Again, in a lot of these things, it's like you assume it, but when you see the proof, these are all illegal. You're not supposed to be working with a country to commit war crimes. You're not supposed to be working with Israel when they commit war crimes. So the receipts are a different thing than just kind of, didn't we think the U.S. was giving intelligence to Israel?
Mm-hmm. Half these articles, the main headline is about, like, what are they going to do about these leaks? I mean, what's going on here? People are snitching and tattling.
Yeah, well, everyone should be furious that, I don't know, Israel's getting ready to bomb Iran, or that the U.S. is helping them, or that the admission in these documents that Israel has nuclear weapons they've never been held accountable for. Mm-hmm. That is what everyone should be fuming about. And instead, a lot of CNN, et cetera, will be like, how did this leak happen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How did this leak come out of Israel nuking Iran's nukes? This is crazy stuff going on right now.
Yeah, and that was, of course, a lot of the writing by mainstream media about Assange was, how dare he reveal our mass corruption or our killing of innocent civilians, etc. One of the documents also suggests something that Israel has always declined to confirm publicly, that the country has nuclear weapons. The document says the U.S. has not seen any indications that Israel plans to use a nuclear weapon against Iran. Now, this is one of the things that it could go either way, but it slightly makes me think this might have been an intentional leak, that Israel is at the point now that they kind of want everyone to know we have nuclear weapons and we're talking about using them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe, I feel the same way. Maybe not. They're not very good at deciding what to show the public, as far as like when they killed Yahya and wanted everyone to see, and everyone was like, damn, that was pretty badass, whoever that guy was.
Oh, right. You're referring to how he was still fighting as they're murdering him. And
yeah, and well, their specific decision to broadcast that to the public, and the public's reaction, which mostly seemed to be like, whoa, that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, a lot, those, I think it probably came down to who was supporting Israel and versus who was calling this a genocide to begin with. But yeah, those who feel this has been a genocide pointed to the fact that you have this leader of Hamas fighting to the death, while, of course, the leaders of the genocide are nowhere near the bombs falling or anything else.
True. It was probably just my algorithm. You're right. You're definitely right about
that. Yeah, I don't know if it was everyone, Jaffer. I don't know who you're lined up with, but and they apparently Israel dropped leaflets across Gaza showing the dead Yahya Sinwar, basically saying, this is going to happen to all of you. Although, like you're saying, it seems like this propaganda is largely backfiring because
it's out of their control big time.
Yeah. So we've kind of made a little reference to this, but when a country has nuclear weapons, especially nuclear weapons that have not been inspected, there's a lot of treaties, international treaties around nuclear weapons and what should be done with them to make sure we don't all kill ourselves. And so this is from Sam Husseini's Substack, his writing. I had him on a week or two ago. Aside from the doc's possible effect regarding the anticipated Israeli attack on Iran, this creates a major opening since both the U.S. and Israeli governments have refused to acknowledge the existence of Israel's nuclear weapons arsenal. Veterans for Peace wrote an in-depth letter to the administration, to the Biden administration, which began, the nation of Israel possesses a large nuclear weapons program. It is illegal under international law for Israel to have them. Because Israel has nuclear weapons and has tested them in the past, they have also violated U.S. federal law and are completely disqualified from receiving any military aid and related assistance from the United States. The U.S. president has no lawful discretion whatsoever to allow any military assistance of any form to be delivered to Israel. Existing military assistance arrangements must be immediately curtailed. So this is saying it's completely illegal. It's also illegal by U.S. law to be aiding Israel as they commit war crimes, as they block U.S. and other aid from getting into Gaza. All of this is supposed to be illegal, and even the U.S. president is not supposed to be allowed to do it. But of course, none of that seems to matter. In the 1980s, before he was Israel's prime minister, Benjamin Netanyahu allegedly was directly involved in an Israeli international smuggling ring that illegally acquired 800 nuclear weapons triggers from a U.S. firm. So it's good to know that Netanyahu back in the 80s was involved in actually helping Israel get nuclear weapons illegally, uninspected nuclear weapons that the whole world is not allowed to see or look at or hold accountable. And
as long as he wasn't using tunnels to do those smuggling.
Yeah. As long as it was right, exactly. As long as it was above ground, because tunnels are nefarious and dirty, but above ground is fine.
Tunnels are anti-Semitic.
Tunnels are anti-Semitic.
We all know that.
Is very true. Which is why I had a big problem with Fraggle Rock. It just seemed aggressively anti-Semitic. But back in the 80s, Netanyahu was also, that's back when he was American. He was, he went to MIT, he grew up in Pennsylvania.
He was hanging out with Will Smith in Philly playing basketball.
Changed his name a few times, became good friends with Mitt Romney at Boston Consulting, etc. But anyway, whether it was intentional or not, these leaked docs yet again prove that Israel has nuclear weapons. We'd heard there'd been whistleblowers. I can't remember which member of the Israeli government had come out several years ago and said that Israel has nuclear weapons, but there'd been whistleblowers. But this is like the second or third U.S. document that proves that Israel has nuclear weapons that they are denying against all international law. So
it is terrifying.
It is terrifying. Also, there's again, this I like to bring people Israeli outlets because it means even Israeli media is admitting these things. And this one is from, in fact, the other day I brought the article from a former IDF commander saying Israel would collapse within the year if things continue as they are. That was in Haaretz. And this one's in Haaretz as well. New evidence reveals Netanyahu's relentless efforts to block hostage deals. The report shows Wednesday night, Channel 12 News presented a comprehensive report detailing all of the hostage negotiation deals that have been proposed since November, when the last and only successful exchange took place. The investigation includes never-before-seen documents and previously unheard conversations, which highlight Netanyahu's relentless attempts to torpedo the deal. And again, this is something that many of us, mostly in independent media, have been saying again and again and again, that Netanyahu's been stopping these deals. There were even forged documents from Netanyahu's office that were meant to look like they came from Hamas to sink the deals. And here's the proof. And it's finally being covered by mainstream media, although this is Israeli mainstream media, not U.S. mainstream media. The investigation demonstrates Netanyahu did everything in his power to make sure they were not successful. He repeatedly prevented them from traveling. This is Israeli negotiators from traveling to ceasefire talks, or greatly limited their negotiation powers when they were allowed to go. He walked back several promises he made, including an agreement to end the war, and invents new non-starters that were previously never mentioned. He changed his mind, he denied, and he shifted blame to anyone he possibly can. And throughout all of this, he has ministers like Smotrich and Ben-Gvir threatened to leave his government if a deal moved forward. So this is Haaretz admitting.
Yeah, that's crazy. I was always taught that Israel was created in 1948 to get the hostages back. I could have sworn that was part of their history. So I'm very shocked by this.
Yes, they had a time traveler with them, and he said, "You're going to need this to get the hostages back in 2024." But this is the type of thing that's so rarely covered by U.S. mainstream media. Basically, upends a lot of what U.S. mainstream media is telling everyone and has told everyone for the past year, that Israel just desperately wants this hostage deal, and Hamas just won't let them. And if Hamas would give up the hostages, and of course, just reiterate, anytime we say the word hostages, that only means Israeli hostages, not the 10,000 Palestinians being held hostage. But if Hamas would just give up the hostages, then this would all be over. So Hamas is doing this to their own people. That apparently you're allowed to commit genocide if someone doesn't give up hostages. So Hamas is doing this to their own people. We hear this from U.S. mainstream media endlessly, and this upends it all. And yet, this is mainstream Israeli media, and the U.S. can't mention articles like this or developments like this. Cannot even act like they exist.
I mean, we'll see it with the White House press secretaries or whatever, Matt Miller, whoever happens to be behind that podium, and they will reiterate that after every deal that's been rejected by Israel, they will just blatantly lie and say that it was Hamas, and they will do this just on a regular basis. It's just insane that they even think. I was going to say think they can get away with it, but they do get away with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they could just say the opposite. Literally, they can stare people in the face and say, "I'm not looking at you right now," and just that's what the mainstream media will run with. By the way, thank you, Canadian girl, for becoming a member on YouTube. You rock. And I love Canada, except when I don't for one reason or another, but generally I do. So that's about Netanyahu getting in the way of the ceasefire deal in order to allow his ethnic cleansing. And This also, before I get to the next thing, this also, undergirds the theory, although I don't know that's much of a theory anymore, that Israel and Netanyahu, or at least the ruling elite of Israel, have wanted to do this. And they've wanted to do this for a while, meaning commit ethnic cleansing, commit genocide, completely destroy Gaza, take over the oil off Gaza, take over the land. They've wanted to do this for a while. This was an excuse for them to do it. And we have even the New York Times saying that they knew for a year about this upcoming attack on October 7th and did nothing about it, and had stand down orders for 7 hours while it went on. Like, there's so much that is proven this is what Israel wanted, or at least the ruling elite. And this sinking every ceasefire goes with that. It's just more evidence to show that. And this also goes with the fact that Netanyahu and the ruling elite of Israel are stopping all of the aid. This is from Azorad, who does awesome stuff on Twitter. She says, if you looked at Western media headlines, would you know that Israel is deliberately blocking aid to Gaza? Gaza isn't starving, they're being starved. And she shows these headlines. North Gaza is starving as humanitarian aid declines. And yeah, it's just, who knows what's causing it? It's just, maybe bad weather. In northern Gaza, hunger looms over daily existence. Again, could be an infestation of the fig trees. We're not sure. Hunger experts say the risk of famine in Gaza remains high. And that was from the AP. And here's Reuters. Surge in Gaza violence. Who knows who's doing the violence? Increases famine risk, Monitor says. The violence might have just fell from the skies. It's tough to say where it came from.
Gazans are so busy being violent to each other, they don't have time to eat anymore. It's crazy what's going on.
It's exactly it. It's Gazan on Gazan violence that is just getting in the way of efforts for them to find food. But this is what our mainstream media is. It's just amazing. Like, they're garbage, but it's such inhumane garbage to facilitate a genocide while you say, there is famine. Famine exists. And they're not dumb enough also to not know that most people just read the headline. Even if you were to get in the article and it says Israel, blah, 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 even if we were to tell the truth in the article, they know people are scanning headlines, and that's the true propaganda, is the headline. Yeah. Here's something else I don't want to skip, obviously, is that Israel is now bombing Lebanon. This isn't that new, but they're bombing it more intensely. It's this headline from PBS says Israel pounds Lebanon and Gaza with airstrikes and says a drone targeted Netanyahu's house. Apparently, and this was the first. Did it come from Hezbollah? I think it was the first successful drone attack on a residence or location connected to any of the Israeli leaders. It hit his vacation house or something. And he was not there at the time, but it is Hezbollah showing they have the ability to hit closer to Netanyahu than they have before. Read a couple of comments from folks. David Nathan says, we in the West insist on remaining the enemy of the world. Leo Serrano says, starving them on purpose, and the US, UK media is complicit. Yeah, I mean, they really are manufacturing consent for famine and death. Canadian Girl says, you're welcome, Lee. Love your channel. I watch it every show. You're the best. AMD says they want the oil off the coast of Lebanon as well. Yeah, and I do think, resource theft is definitely part of this, but it's bigger than that. I always get a little annoyed when people act like it's only oil. Like, oh, they found oil off Gaza. It's like, they weren't treating Palestinians well before they found oil off Gaza. It definitely plays a role, but I don't want to act like it's the only thing going on is the oil.
It's a bonus.
It's a bonus of genocide. Yeah. It is sad when genocide doesn't have some extra perks, Please, everyone who's watching, click the thumbs up button. It really does help. It makes a difference as we fight the almighty algorithms. I want to show Kamala Harris getting interrupted on her campaign trail. Jeff, are you impressed that it seems Kamala Harris could probably win this election fairly easily if she even slightly stood up against genocide, and yet she can't do it?
Yeah, I mean, it's pathetic. I kind of have that question a lot. It's like, do the Democrats want to win? Because, I mean, you know, like these people who get in these positions of power in politics, like their careers, the political position, the elected office is usually just a small part of their careers. They go on to the private sector after this. So
that's where they get the money.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're, you know, they're what's the word I'm looking for? They're what's the word starts with the C when you're a politician? The people who you represent, their constituents.
Constituents, yes.
Are the donors, right? Like you just said. And,
I was going to say constituents.
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in terms of do they want to win, I think a bigger factor than the money afterwards. I mean, they know they're going to get the money, win or lose, but the bigger factor is that these two parties are owned by the same entities. So it's kind of like the entities funding and controlling these things. They're going to win either way. Like the loser is the American people at the end of the day. So if they think they're going to win either way, how hard do they really fight? You know, it's like Al Gore during the recount in Florida. He was like, we actually won for like a day. And then he was like, I don't know, whatever. Okay, you can have it. Like,
yeah, no big deal. No big deal, guys. No worries.
Don't worry about that much. But here she is getting interrupted. And this actually has caused a stir among those who claim she's not supportive of genocide enough. You know, she hasn't done enough for genocide, which is laughable. But Trump and his goons have to create a fake Kamala Harris to run against, because if they ran against the real her, she agrees on just about everything. But anyway, I'll play the clip and then talk about why it's caused such a stir among. It's caused a stir among those who are against the genocide because they are glad someone interrupted her, but it's caused a stir on the other side too.
Right now, I know what you're speaking of. I want the ceasefire.
What about the genocide?
I want the war to end.
What about the genocide?
And I respect your right to speak, but I am speaking right now.
Yeah.
So
19,000 children are dead. 19,000 children are dead.
So listen, what he's talking about, it's real. And so that's not the subject that I came to discuss today, but it's real. And I respect his voice. So listen, here we are.
So that's basically the clip. But the reason people are furious, the genocide supporters are furious, is she said it's real. And that upsets them because they think that could mean that it's really a genocide, because he said the word genocide. And I think it's pretty obvious what she was saying is real, is that kids are dying in her words, and their passive aggressive, not passive voice words. Kids are dying in Gaza. And so she meant that's real. But they, of course, would never call it a genocide. Instead, she does this sheepish, like, oh, yeah, no, there are some people dying. We'll talk about that later. I'm not here to talk about
I'm
that.
speaking.
And then she gets the cheers from the liberals who say, yeah, she was talking before you said genocide.
Oh, yeah. It's just, I mean, we've just learned that for a lot of people who in this country actually hold a red line, and the red line of interrupting a woman talking is not to be crossed.
That's the red line, not genocide, not bombing of kids, not 20,000 children murdered, not famine, not death and destruction. None of that. She was talking. Totally agree. But it's just kind of hilarious that this lightest of light statements saying, she basically said, I hear you, and it's real, meaning the death is real. That is upsetting to the people who want this genocide to continue. And that was too much for them. And so then the Harris campaign came out with a statement where they said, in the New York Times, Vice President Kamala, or New York Times covering this, Vice President Kamala Harris's advisors say the empathy she has expressed for Palestinians in Gaza should not be confused with any willingness to break from U.S. foreign policy. She had to come up with a statement saying, yes, I understand you're being genocided, but don't worry. I will keep killing Palestinians as much as anyone.
Yeah. Don't mistake my kindness for alive Palestinians. Don't worry.
Yeah. Don't mistake my my slight wording of compassion that is not matched by any actions.
Yes.
For not being willing to bomb Palestinians on a daily basis with shipments coming from the United States every 36 hours to help bomb children. Yeah. So she put out that wonderful statement. Let's see. I have a few more. I always say the show has become first half hour is everything about Israel and genocide, and then we get on to other stories after that. Let's see. Yeah, no, for a while, I'd say for 6 months after October 7th, it was essentially the full hour, every show. And now I've tried to back it off to half an hour, but I wanted to, this was meaningful and heartbreaking and telling at the same time. I put up a post, which has gotten more response than just about anything I've done in a year or more, in terms of responses from people. And I just wanted to show some to everybody watching. Basically, I just put up the statement. I put it up on Twitter X, fairly simple statement. And then I reposted it on YouTube community. Fairly simple question, just asking, has bearing witness to a full year of US-backed genocide changed you? Not like, do you think it's happening? Not is it upsetting, but has it changed you? And over on Twitter, there's been like 2,000 responses or something. And on YouTube community, there's been 300 responses. And the responses are kind of like, the hope I see in them is the sense of community and the sense of the idea that people are paying attention and they care. The, pain of obviously these comments is just reading how painful it is to people. But I'll just read a few out of 200 or 300 responses just here. W. Waitkus says, it's changed me. I met a Palestinian family back in the early aughts or whatever. I don't know. We need to agree on a term for the zeros. I don't know what it is. I became friends with them, and listening to them created a harsh awakening in me for the treatment of Palestinians. Tayrowell said, I've lost complete trust in our government. Not that I had much before. This erodes it all. The MBS wrote, I haven't stopped screaming since it started. The whole Israeli occupation of Palestine is a horror beyond words. Annie7489 said, I've lost faith in humanity and I despise our government officials. They are beyond evil. G. Gnostic said, being Lakota from Standing Rock, nothing that Western powers do surprises or changes me, but I have so much less respect for 95% of the people I've known and misjudged as to their level of humanity for years. And, that's just a little sampling, but it was pretty powerful to see how many people responded to it. And obviously, for those of you watching, if you still want to respond to it, it's at youtube.com/moment of clarity. Click on the community tab, or you can find it on my Twitter at Lee Camp. But it is interesting that a lot of people said, yeah, I knew these things. Like I knew the Palestinians were oppressed, or I knew that Israel wasn't treating Palestinians well, but this has changed me in a whole new way. I mean, this is the first genocide that's been live streamed on our computers and phones. It's fucking nuts.
Yeah, I really agree with the guy Lakota, who is Lakota, was Lakota tribe. About like not surprised by any of the politicians, but it has affected the way I look at so many people in my life, to see, because I know unfortunately a lot of Americans are able to just avoid this news, which seems crazy to me. But I know a lot of my people in my life personally who are just choosing to ignore it. And so it's had that effect. I have nightmares like continuously. So there is that, I guess, I agree with that. I really felt that with the guy who said that, where just the average people in my life, I look at a little differently now.
The people, do you find there's any difference in the people in your life ignoring it depending on like, are they Kamala supporters? Are they Trump supporters? Are they, I don't know, black, whites? Does it cut down
I
in
don't
those
know.
dynamics or not really?
That's a good question. Yeah, I don't think any of that. I don't think that data would be. You know, I was at a wedding recently, and one of my old friends from high school, who's a very, very apolitical person, and came up to me, and we had a long conversation because he was absolutely shocked and outraged and confused as to how we can do this and how, and but he's always been just like a genuine guy, you know. And so even people that I know here in New York, whose politics should align with Palestine, just can't seem to be bothered. So I think it goes beyond like politics and identity, and just like who you are as an empathetic person, at least from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of people who are hurt by it, but kind of don't want to let that get in the way of their day to day. And you know, it's a lot of what America has been for.
Yeah,
I'll say at least the last 24 years. It's been like, well, you know, the global war on terror has killed 4.5 to 6 million people, according to the Brown University cost of war. And while those 6 million people have had their lives destroyed, 6 million people killed. So who knows how many lives have destroyed. But while that's been going on, for the most part, we've wanted to, you know, go to Whole Foods and watch our movies and have our lives pretty much stay the same. So I guess in this regard, maybe this is not that different. The difference is you largely didn't have those live streamed. Like there was very little, you know, video coverage of the Afghanistan, you know, weddings that we bombed. So it feels very different in terms of what people can just witness every day.
Yeah, it's as close to us as possible without actually us physically being there, you know?
Yeah. Okay. I wanna show this video because I'm gonna come back to Israel in a minute, but I want to throw in this is like a bit of a palate cleanser, although it's still, I don't know. Obviously, a lot of people are still suffering. This has to do with the recovery from the hurricanes, Hurricane Milton specifically. And this was put up. It's gone viral, so some people might have already seen this, but it was put up by Border Patrol, U.S. Border Patrol, showing how they are also helping people recover from Hurricane Milton.
Mm-hmm.
And it is this video, and I'll describe it for those of you watching the podcast. I'm sorry, listen to the podcast. It is this video of them handing logs down a chain of Border Patrol agents, literally one log at a time. It looks like a comedy sketch. It looked like if you were going to make fun of how meaningless these people are, this is what I would create. I'd create 42 of them handing one log down a line. And this is the best thing. Like if every one of these people, you're talking like 20 men and women, many of them ripped. If they were to all walk and pick up a log and bring it back to that pile, it would take 12 seconds and they'd have the entire thing cleared.
Mm-hmm.
And instead, they've got this bucket brigade that and they posted this themselves. This was them bragging about how they're helping people. It's unbelievable. Like,
yeah, it's one thing to be useless, but to be that inefficient while being useless, I mean, come on.
Like, literally, there's people hanging from trees, I think, still, and they're handing logs down a bucket brigade one by one. And this post, I'm surprised they haven't taken it down because this post has been shared like 9,000 reposts, and I don't think one of them is genuine. Like, I don't think a single person was like, I gotta show how Border Patrol is helping us.
Mm-hmm. Did you see there was cops who had like a drug bust? Like they just came across like through all the wreckage like a bunch of like illicit drugs, and they were bragging about it, and they were like, anyone want to come claim these? Because we got them. It's like, bro, you could be out helping people right now instead of being proud of like washed up drugs you found.
You mean that was in a hurricane area?
Yes, yeah. Absolutely useless.
Well, and I mean, there's just so many levels of this to talk about humiliating. You know, why are we at the point where we need border patrol like cleaning up hurricanes? And the reason is because we're not actually putting enough money as a society into dealing with the climate crisis that we've created. So instead, we're putting tons of money into stopping the immigrants who we despise, who we're told to despise. And that means that there's probably a lot more Border Patrol agents and personnel than there are FEMA personnel. So let's just bring all these cops and Border Patrol that we've invested billions of dollars into. Maybe they can help clean up some of this shit.
Just emptying their clips into tornadoes, like just doing, you know, trying to de-escalate the best that they can. The bad weather.
By the way, I think Trump actually proposed, according to leaked witnesses, proposed dropping a nuke into a hurricane.
Yeah.
And I think I made fun of it back when we were on Redacted tonight.
I remember, yeah.
But literally, Trump said, "Why don't we just drop one of those nuclear weapons into these hurricanes?" I'm sure that would make all that would do is make the hurricane radioactive.
Yeah. He's like, why don't we preemptively strike the hurricane with a nuclear weapon?
Okay, this is legit the last Israel story, but I also didn't want to skip this. So again, this is Times of Israel. This is a very pro-Israel newspaper. This is pro-Israel propaganda most of the time. And so even they are admitting that this just happened yesterday and the day before. Palestinians say settlers torched homes, poultry farm, and fields in northern West Bank. And this is the ongoing attacks on West Bank towns, villages, houses by Israeli settlers. And, you know, we have to find a new name other than settlers. Settlers is really a euphemism, a propaganda term, because settler sounds nice, but these are people facilitating, you know, colonization, facilitating theft of land. So these are land pillagers or land pirates, I guess.
Yeah. It's the same, like we all know in America, like the story of Thanksgiving is horseshit. If you're an adult, you know that the pilgrims, like these are the same fucking psycho settler colonists as the pilgrims.
Yeah, similar to Columbus. This is the Columbus of Israel, I guess. And they've been going into West Bank villages and burning houses, burning farms. They like to destroy trees. Many olive trees are hundreds and even thousands of years old. And they like to do what they can to destroy those so that there's no income or way to farm the area. And so there was a big attack the other day in the village of Jalud, south of Nablus. Set fire to 3 homes. Often people will end up dead, whether caught in fires or actually shot and killed. But this is also, there's so little accountability as well, because the main power in terms of military power in the region is going to be Israel, and they're going to let all this happen. So you've got the people with the guns, the most guns, saying, yeah, go ahead, whatever. You destroyed a village, we don't care. And this also, again, upends Israel's fake justification for their ethnic cleansing, because this had to do with Hamas, right? This had to do with Israeli hostages. That's why we're attacking Gaza. Really? Because you're attacking the West Bank as well, and the West Bank does not have Hamas.
The settlers, they show up backed by the IDF, and the settlers, I don't know if you remember, like soon after October 7th, Itamar, whatever that guy's, Ben-Gvir, went and physically, they handed out, I think something like 2,000 assault rifles to settlers by hand to now go and do stuff like this.
Oh, I missed that story. Yeah, that's horrific. And it used to be you had to get like fairly extensive for Israel approval to settle new land, to steal Palestinian land. But now they've dwindled it down to like one guy signs it off, and basically they're giving out 99% of all permits that are asked to steal land. So,
yeah, getting a West Bank home in Israel is like getting a gun in America.
yeah, it's that easy. And anyway, I really wanted to show this because this is even the pro-Israel propaganda rag is saying, oh yeah, Israelis are attacking Palestinian people, burning their farms down. That's what's going on. Okay, let's jump now. Before I do that, let me say, everybody, it'd be awesome if you can support the show. Become a member at leecamp.net. That's my locals page. Scroll down to become a subscriber. It's a whopping 38 cents an episode, and you will be helping keep this show going. Also, everybody, if you can check out my new podcast called Just Comedy, that is on. It's on all the podcast platforms. It's all my comedy segments. Let's see. While I have you, I wanted to get to 100 ratings on Spotify, and I want to see what I'm at so far. Let's see. We are at 75. All right, 25 short of the 100 ratings. It would be amazing if you ever listen to Spotify or anything. Go over there and click that and hit the rating button. There's a little star thing, and hit 5 stars. If you're not going to hit 5 stars, then just don't even bother. Okay, just don't even bother. And Jaffer, before it's nice to let people know before the end of the show, where can they follow your work?
I am mostly on Twitter and Instagram. I'm mostly doing video stuff, satire. A lot of politics, and I'll post some stand-up posts as well.
Were you banned from TikTok? You used to be big on TikTok.
I have not gotten banned, but I have gotten. I have my reach is pretty low on TikTok. Unfortunately, it's extremely frustrating. I try not to complain about it because there's so much worse stuff going on in the world.
Yeah.
But thank you, Lee, for giving me a platform to complain that TikTok has completely cut my reach. And
that's why I reached out to you. I was like, you're good at complaining. Can you come on?
But yeah, JofferCon Comic on Instagram and TikTok is where you can find me. So yeah, appreciate that. That's my plug.
Cool. Okay, so here is Joe Biden yesterday getting the highest award from the government he attacked. Let's keep in mind as we watch these cheers and celebrations that Joe Biden blew up one of Germany's largest infrastructure projects, the Nord Stream pipeline.
Let us take you back to Berlin. As promised, President Biden is receiving Germany's highest honor for his work improving the relationship, the transatlantic relationship between the United States and Germany, pinning it on his lapel there, the German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier. This is going to be President Biden's last visit to.
Very exciting. I mean, Trump said he could shoot someone on Main Street and get away with it. Is this not the international foreign policy equivalent? You blew up a multi-billion-dollar infrastructure project that has destroyed the German energy sector, caused many Germans to be struggling to pay for energy, to pay for heating, etc. And yet you get their highest award.
Good for Biden. He deserves a little one last accolade of a completely flawless presidency before he gets out of here.
Flawless in all regards. And U.S. mainstream media will continues to refuse to actually report the reality of our destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline, even though it's been revealed by multiple sources, multiple outlets. Seymour Hersh was maybe the first, but others have.
Lee, you're wrong. Russia destroyed their own pipeline to show us how crazy they are. To really show.
Right. I had forgotten. Russia loves to destroy their own multi-billion-dollar infrastructure projects. That's a thing they're really into. And that totally has to be it. So let's jump to speaking of Ukraine and the proxy war there. Let's jump to this is the head of NATO, Stoltenberg, although I guess it might be pronounced Stoltenberg, or whatever, wherever he, where he's from. But this interviewer, Norwegian interviewer, asks him pretty simple questions about the China threat, quote unquote, because, NATO loves to talk about how harmful China is, just like the U.S. does. And these pretty simple questions baffle and befuddle the head of NATO. I'm going to have to maybe keep pausing it and reading it because it's not in English. But for those who listen to the podcast, I'll have to pause and read it.
Som en trussel mot NATOs sikkerhet og verdier. Jeg har lyst til å
Says you and NATO have pointed to the threat of China. I'd like to ask you a few
stille deg
questions
noen korte kontrollspørsmål om trusselen fra Kina som NATO er bekymret for.
about the China threat.
Hvor mange land har Kina grepet inn i militært de siste 40 årene? Det vi ser
He says, in the past 40 years, how many countries has China intervened in?
kommer til det. Hvis du svarer på det spørsmålet. Hvor mange land har Kina grepet inn i militært de siste 40 årene?
Militarily. How many has China intervened in militarily in the past 40 years?
De har vært inne i Vietnam.
Svaret er 0 de 40 årene.
He tries to say Vietnam, and the reporter goes, actually 0.
Har de ikke
Altså,
grepet
Vietnam
inn?
gikk de inn i.
Det er tidligere enn 40 år.
Ja vel, men det er i hvert fall... Ja.
Så
He says that was over 40 years ago. And he looks baffled. Oh, was it? Okay. Oh, I was thinking of a different Vietnam.
hvis vi holder oss til den tidsrammen. Hvor mange land har Kina militære baser i rundt omkring i verden?
He then says, how many military bases does China have outside of bases? Outside of China?
Et fåtall.
Et land. Djibouti har det en konkret
And head of NATO says, a few. No, it's actually one. It's in Djibouti.
militær base som de har bygd ut. Den er stor. På motsatt side har USA angrepet minst 30 land i samme
He then says, in contrast, the U.S. has attacked at least 13 countries in the same period, the past 40 years.
At least
and that means
doing some
military.
heavy lifting on that.
What's that?
I said at least doing some heavy lifting, and that's
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, because that means like we publicly said we are bombing this country would be 13, maybe, probably more, but that's like us publicly admitting it. Whereas CIA assassinating people, dozens and dozens more. U.S. quietly attacking people, dozens and dozens more. U.S. proxies killing and assassinating various government officials, like Israel assassinating Iranian officials, dozens more. So yeah, the at least is a little low.
13 land i samme periode. Amerikanerne har 750 baser i
He then says the U.S. has 750 military bases in at least 80 countries. 750 may be a little low. I think it was up to 1,000. It may be down to 800, 900 now.
minst 80 land, mange av dem på dørstokken til Kina. Likevel så mener du at det er Kina som
He then says, you still think China poses the greatest threat? Anyway, it's, for those of you listening to the podcast, you don't get to see the stunned face of Stoltenberg, but it's simple reality. And so rarely do you see a journalist even ask a question like this, even point out to these people's faces how fucking pathetic they are, that they you really want to say China is the biggest threat in the world while the U.S. is bombing people around the globe, has surrounded China with military weaponry, continues to do that in various countries.
Or what about all of China's ships in the North Australian Sea, which is what I would like to call the South China Sea from now on.
I wouldn't be surprised if they've tried that. Have they tried that in the North Australian Sea? Yeah, the U.S. You'll see everyone's going to see articles from Reuters or whatever saying China planes fly near American, threaten American jets or whatever, and they regret to remind everyone this is like inches from Chinese airspace, whereas it's thousands of miles from U.S. airspace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They flew right over a military base. Like, bro, I can't walk outside and fart without touching a U.S. military base.
Yeah. Someone, let's see, Maria is saying in the chat that journalist is going to get fired. Want to bet? Yeah, you do wonder where, in the rare case you see a journalist actually question somebody, do they just have some amazing higher ups that allow them to do that, or it's very rare. He then says, you still think China poses the greatest threat?
China som en trussel mot Norge.
He then says, you still think China poses the greatest threat? He then says, you still think China poses the greatest threat? He then says, you still think China poses the greatest threat? He then says, you still think China poses the greatest threat? He then says, you still think China poses the greatest threat? He then says, you still think China poses the greatest threat? He then says, you still think China poses the greatest threat? He then says, you still think China poses the greatest threat? He then says, you still think China poses the greatest threat? He then says, you still think China poses the greatest threat? He then says, you still think China poses the greatest threat? He then says, you still think China poses the greatest threat? He then says, you still think China poses the greatest threat? He then says, you still think China poses the greatest threat? He then says, Okay. I want to get to this before we run out of time. This is a report about your former home and mine, Washington, D.C. We were both there for Redacted tonight. I was there for 8 years. And this is also indicative of many cities in the United States. But a new report has come out that has revealed that 94% of all police use of force incidents in Washington, D.C. involve Black people. Basically, Washington, D.C. police almost exclusively beat up Black people.
Wow.
Which is, even though we know it's going to be high, we know our policing system in the United States is racist in a variety of ways, 94% even kind of shocks me.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's like movie scripts levels. You know what I mean? That sounds made up, but not at all.
Yeah. In 2022, 90% of such incidents were against Black people. So it was only 90 in 2022. And now we're up to... They're
like, guys, if we're this close, we might as well just go all the way.
There were instructions. Can we cut out that last 6% where someone hit a white person?
Mm-hmm.
In total, the number of use of force incidents rose by 11% over the past year and a half. 45% of officers who reported using use of force were Black. 52% of the MPD is made up of Black officers. So for the Fox News reporters out there who will cover this story and say, oh, but they don't want you to know that it's actually Black cops doing some of this. No, this is part of what's so nefarious about our policing system is, yes, in certain cities, there are a lot of police officers of color. It doesn't mean that they're not still perpetrating the racist policing system. And that's how they rise up in the ranks. And if they aren't willing to perpetrate the racist policing system, they're not going to stay there long. You get drummed out if you are going to, stand up as a rookie against the way our racist policing works. Mm-hmm. So the fact that many of these cops are Black does not stop this from being an insane statistic. And then it also says these statistics are disproportionate to the number of Black or African-American people who live in D.C. In 2020, the U.S. Census reported that 44.4% of D.C.'s population is Black. So you have a 44% Black population, while 94% of all use of force, which could be a lot of things. It can be aggressive tackling to the ground. It can be actually trying to beat the person. But in general, it's aggressive tackles to the ground to arrest them. 94% are used on Black people, while the population is only 44.4% Black. And this also this speaks to a lot of the different racist aspects of our policing. Another one is that the vast majority of police are sent to largely more Black communities. So if we fill a certain community with police, they're going to quote unquote find more things. Like if you live in an area where police are not wandering the streets every 8 seconds, they're less likely to find things in those communities. Call me crazy. I think policing, I mean, first of all, we should create a form of community policing. But besides that, policing should be called when something is such a major problem that you need a guy with a gun. It shouldn't just be guys with guns wandering everywhere to try and find problems. Mm-hmm. It's kind of the reverse of what it should be.
Yeah, guys with guns on steroids. Let's not forget that.
Yes, 25%, or it's over 25% of police in urban areas are suspected to be abusing steroids. That's not just any usage. That's like full-on roid rage level. And they're rarely ever tested for any of this. Most police departments, or maybe all police departments, don't even have a rule against steroids. So it's kind of like, yeah, go out there, use steroids, get as big and dumb as possible, and then we're going to send you out on the streets with guns, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
But yeah, that's insane. 94% is an absolutely insane, explainable, you know what I mean, statistic, except for the obvious explanation.
Yeah. And it also, another racist level of it is that these cops generally are going to more often worry if they're getting ready to tackle a white guy. They're more often going to worry that that person has, whether it's the money for big lawyers or connections to political elite or whatever, that person's likely, or maybe slightly more likely, to have that kind of powerful ability to fight against the police department, to get them in trouble, etc.
Especially in DC, probably.
Yeah.
That mentality, yeah.
Yeah. In DC, every white person they go to tackle is like, do you know who my uncle is? And they're like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
His uncle is A, B, and C senator you've never heard of? God damn it. Okay, so let me get to these two stories. And, oh, man, I want to do that one, too. We'll see what we get to. Where is... Oh, no. Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay, so these two stories together are pretty amazing. So cash-strapped towns across America have started unpaving their roads because they can't afford to fix them. They can't afford to fix the potholes. So we're basically going back to dirt roads. The United States is just we're headed back to the 1800s, and actually that fits with my background, the collapsing New York Metro. But
yeah.
we're just trying to get back to the 1800s, trying to do it the way we did it then. We're thinking of going back to horse and buggy soon, but there are towns across America where we can send billions of dollars to bomb children in a tiny 5-mile wide area called Gaza, but we don't have the money to fix the roads in rural America.
Yes. We bombed them into the Stone Age while we, brick by brick, put us back into the Stone Age as well.
Yes.
We're all going back in time, folks.
Return ourselves to the Stone Age. Of course, the money is laughable. I mean, the money it would cost to keep these roads effectively paved is a drop in the bucket for the U.S. Pentagon, where they spend $1 trillion a year. If you count the intelligence budget, over $1 trillion a year. $1 trillion is an unbelievable amount of money. And again, paving these roads would be nothing that could be out of the Pentagon's budget. But of course, we need to send money to death and destruction far more than we need to take care of average Americans, take care of actually, how our lives are going in across America. That goes for everything from healthcare to job security to daycare to all of that gets thrown by the wayside so that we can send $1 trillion a year into the largest money laundering scheme in the world to send it to weapons contractors and lobbyists. And that's what's going on. So the United States is going backwards to the Stone Age. Meanwhile, here's what's going on in China. China has completed the world's first fully unmanned paving construction project.
Wow.
This is a fully unmanned construction drone swarm. And here are some photos. And it was unveiled recently. And all of these machines are unmanned. And they have crazy safety. Unlike your average self-driving Tesla, they have crazy safety precautions so that they're not going to pave anyone into the highway. I mean, it might be kind of comical if they did, but that could be a punishment for people who, deserve it.
Chinese fingers are safe, is what you're saying.
Yeah, the fingers and toes of people seeing if it will pave over them. It's hard to see, but this machine is massive. There's a tiny little guy off to the side here, kind of observing how it's going. But this massive machine is all unmanned. But of course, because it's new technology, they have people overseeing it. But eventually you could have this paving 1,000 miles without anybody there. And this is in just slight stark contrast to the U.S., where we're unpaving our country. Mm-hmm. And I've always said that, all of this stuff, whenever you see a country doing something well or right or advancement in technology, it should then be mimicked by other countries so that they can advance their societies. But instead, with China, like, for example, bullet trains, we're like, we're not doing that. That's awful. China also has cured cancer for certain kinds of cancer. And we like refuse to follow that research because it's done by China. It's the evil kind of cancer cure.
The communist cure. We let our cancer live free and enjoy freedom inside of our bodies in America.
Exactly. We don't want our cancer. We don't want our cancer being all communist.
Mm-hmm. Cuba too, right? Doesn't Cuba has
they have a vaccine for lung cancer.
Yeah.
So I have no idea medically how it works, but there are some lung cancer victims or patients in the United States who have been sneaking into Cuba to try and get their lung cancer cured, because you're not allowed to apply to go to Cuba from the United States and say, I want my lung cancer treated. You have to sneak in to try and survive. So
the Cuban lung cancer vaccine that has actually survived over 200 assassination attempts from the CIA.
Yeah,
very
exploding scuba suits and cigars and
exploding syringes.
Yeah, exactly. And I also will throw in here, like, I often talk about multiple levels of reality, multiple things can be true, and I'm speaking about how advanced this unmanned construction drone fleet is, and at the same time, does this put workers out of a job? Like if it were done in the US, yeah, absolutely. This, like, millions across the US are employed to pave roads. And if you brought this into the US, you could probably knock millions of workers out of work, or hundreds of thousands at least. But of course, if you were an adult, rational society, when someone loses a job like that, they aren't just thrown out on the street and say, fucking fend for yourself. Instead, the society says, hey, you'll only work 4 days a week instead of 5, and you'll get paid the same you were working for 5. But we don't do that. Instead, we use every bit of technology to only benefit the masters, quote unquote, of the society, and to harm all the others. So I don't want to leave that point out when we talk about technology. Okay. Shall I wrap it up there? Well, one last one. While we're talking about technology, this is, sorry, 1 second. The US does have advanced technology in some regards. Robot vacuum cleaners, which of course we all have now. No, I'm kidding. I don't have one, but vacuum cleaners are being hacked to spy on your family, chase your pets, hurl verbal abuse. And the makers claim users, quote, do not need to worry excessively about this.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
When it's chasing your dog around your house and telling it to turn against you, don't worry about it.
Wow, these vacuums are very dystopian. Like, they were before. I read like a year ago, these like Roombas were being used as micro work. Like they were taking pictures of things around the house, including people and pets, and you know how
right.
What is it called when you have to check it? You have to tell people you're not a robot.
What are those called? Like the CAPTCHA code, yeah.
Yeah, it's like that a lot of CAPTCHA work is done by the very, very poorest people in the world, telling the robots what is what is a person, what is this, to help build that technology of AI that's not even really AI. It's not AI. It's like some poor guy in Venezuela.
Right.
And it was also before these Roombas were like chasing your pet and calling you the N-word, they were exploiting poor people in Venezuela and Africa by building these weird algorithm recognition, whatever. I don't know the words. I'm dumb, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I got you. I got the point. If only you had a poor Indian man in your ear who could tell you
Exactly.
what word you're looking for.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I remember what you were talking about where I think it was through Amazon. Oh, because Amazon bought Roomba. And
Mhm.
part of the reason they bought Roomba was so that they could map out all of your houses and steal that data. And
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
and Roomba was some Roombas. I don't know whether they were hacked or not, but they were uploading photos of people to the cloud without the person knowing.
Mhm.
And so there's like photos of people in their own home sitting on their toilet, and they have no idea that Roomba has been like sending this to the internets, and people are exploring their toilet photos.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
They're
awesome.
learning. This is like school for the robots. Let them learn.
And this is part of the reason that I stand on my porch just buck naked all the time, because I'm like, you can't take what I give for free, right?
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
I feel like that's a good policy.
Yeah. Have your neighbors gotten a little bit more open-minded about that finally, or are they still being weird about that?
Yes, there's a little weirdness, I think
a
they
shame.
don't understand why I'm yelling that particular phrase, but
Classic establishment Democrats that you live nearby.
it's true. It's true. Thank you, Teresa, for the donation. Keep fighting. Oh, yes. Teresa's asking me to post the link to Joffer's Instagram. Are you able to?
Nice. Thanks.
Well, see, Joffer, now you got me searching for your Instagram.
All right. It's just at Joffer Khan Comic.
Whatever. You've ruined my day. There we go. Okay. I'll get it in a second. Okay. Putting it in the chats. There we go. Yes, for those who are not looking at the chat, it is Instagram.com/Joffer Khan Comic. Thank you, Teresa. Really appreciate that. So, what was the last thing I was going to say about this? Is in terms of technology, like we're like technology increases exponentially, and AI is going to just run wild in the next 5 years. And there's like no precaution. There's no advanced thought on like how to protect ourselves. It's all just, we wait for the worst thing to happen. I mean, literally people decapitated by Tesla self-driving cars. And we go, maybe we should try and stop that. Like, it's just a last thought. You got robot vacuums running around, stealing all your data, taking photos of you, taking a shit and sending it to Amazon. Then we go, maybe we should do something about it. And I feel like that's going to be, as the nuclear bombs rain down that AI has discovered how to fire, like as they're coming down, we're going to go, we should have done something about that.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we should try unpaving the roads. Maybe that's what we should be doing right now.
Going back to 1800s when there were no computers. I like the cut of your jib.
Yeah. Let's all go live on a Mennonite compound. That's what I say.
Excuse me, it's humanite.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
My bad.
Let's not perpetrate those male-centric names. So, all right, I'm going to wrap up for today. I do these live streams 4 days a week, although I am giving everyone fair warning. I do not want to spring this on y'all, to use my hometown lingo. I will be gone for 2.5 weeks, starting this Saturday, headed to Tibet to film some stuff there. I will do my best during those 2.5 weeks to bring you guys segments and stuff. I seriously doubt any of it will be live streams because it'll be the middle of the night there. But I will do my best to bring segments and video and all that stuff to keep things going. But don't worry. During those 2.5 weeks, don't worry. I will be back. There will be live streams after those 2.5 weeks, but that starts Saturday. So next week I will be gone. But I have a lot of stuff that you guys can look. You can do your homework and catch up on things. I got a new podcast you can listen to called Just Comedy. I got live streams, many of which I'm sure you haven't heard, at youtube.com/Moment of Clarity. And Jaffer, thank you so much for being with me. Jaffer is on Instagram at Jaffer Khan Comic. And what was the other Twitter?
TikTok.
TikTok, you said you weren't doing much on TikTok.
No, I'm saying I am. I'm still doing it. It's just you're just not going to see it because they don't show it to anyone. But I am still like an idiot posting on there. Just no one sees that.
Well, yeah, I'm
a shadow on TikTok.
Last time I saw you, God, I don't know when it was. I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago or something. Mm-hmm. You were still gung ho on TikTok, but I had been posting on TikTok for about 2 months and they banned me. So I was jealous of the fact that you were still allowed to post anything on TikTok. So it's good to see they're suppressing you.
I mean, that's how good you are on TikTok. You got banned in 2 months. I mean, that's impressive.
Very true. And for everybody who likes podcasts, this is also a podcast. All of the audio from this, which is called The Lee Camp Show, or it's called Moment of Clarity, depending on the platform. And I will see you tomorrow. I'll be chatting with Jill Stein, and Jaffer's going to join me for the rest of the show after I'm done talking to Jill. And so see you tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. And click the bell icon, click subscribe, and keep fighting. Later.